final one here on the SEC preview
We're getting turned.
Oh, yeah, of course. We're getting the Vanderbilt Commodores right now. One of the best Cinderella stories in college football last year. Clark Lee, a lot of people thought he was almost guaranteed to get fired last year at Vanderbilt. They turned it around, though. Their first winning season with a 7-6 record, their first winning season since 2013, which was James Franklin's final year leading the Commodores before he took the Penn State head coaching job. One of those 7 victories was the greatest win in program history over number 1 Alabama. And leading, really, that revival last year, Dalton, was a pair of New Mexico State transfers in quarterback Diego Pavia and tight end Eli Stowers. Both of them are back for another year. If they want to take even the next step next year, the defense got a lot better, but you see on the screen right there, the best quarterback tight end pairing that we have in this entire sport.
And don't forget their New Mexico State head coach, Jerry Kill, is on that coaching staff too. But that's really what it was. Is look, this team, they weren't the best team in college football last year, but they might have been the most fun to watch, right? They've got this dynamic running game led by Pavia in the backfield. Eli Stowers, a former Texas A&M recruit at quarterback, a 4-star quarterback coming out of high school, switches positions because he lost the job to Pavia at New Mexico State, and he's a really good athlete at tight end. He has a good, solid year at New Mexico State there, and then an incredible year last year at Vandy. So I think, you look at these two guys really being the driving force of this, and it doesn't sound like much, but it's really about Pavia being the leader that he is and just the toughest guy and the most fun guy to watch on the football field any given week. So really not being afraid of anybody. They got a dynamic run game, and he can really throw the ball vertically down the field too.
Our number 8 quarterback in the country, Diego Pavia. Our number 1 tight end in the country, and Eli Stowers. The only other school with a top 10 quarterback and top 10 tight end was one we just talked about before too in Texas with Arch Manning and Jack Andrews. They're going to rely on those two a lot next year. The defense, can it perform at even an average level? So Vanderbilt's offense took a major step forward last year with Diego Pavia and Eli Stowers. The same cannot really be said for its defense. The Commodores were 104th in defensive EPA per play last year. They have been 100th or worse in defensive EPA per play 8 straight years now. So they have been basically one of the 30 or so worst defenses in the country 8 straight years now. And making matters worse is the fact that their two highest graded defensive players, safeties DeRicky Wright and CJ Taylor, are no longer with the program either. So this has been a horrendous defense for nearly a decade now, and just lose your 2 highest graded defensive players too. They need their defense to take the next step this year.
Yeah, it's tough because they only had 4 games where they gave up less than 24 points, and that was to some of the softer opponents on their schedule, right? So you're talking about a defense that does need to catch up, and I think my biggest concern really on both sides of the ball is their offensive and defensive lines for that matter. The defensive line, they were decent last year, especially in run defense, but struggled to rush the passer, and then their offensive line, 124th in the country in PFF grade as a unit. So Pavia was really working around a lot when it comes to playing well under pressure and even getting success in the run game. But if their defense can match up with that, then we start talking about, okay, they start to match the efforts of what they had last year. But we also have to remember down the stretch, as things got harder for their offense, they couldn't win those low-scoring type of games. So that's something that does have to get better.
All right, let's talk about the most electric quarterback in college football, Diego Pavia, who actually gave Trevor Sikkema's wife now, Alyssa Lang, the most electric post-game interview last year, too, when they beat Alabama. Dawn, besides just being electric off the field, what should we know about Diego Pavia on the field?
Well, he brings it on the field. It's toughness, right? It's just that same sort of just pissed off, you're not beating me personality. He brings it out there with them. Led all Power 4 quarterbacks in rushing yards after contact and missed tackles forced, right? He's going to be part of this option-heavy, weird kind of offense that he runs. I don't want to say like a Taysom Hill bit. I think that's a name that Trevor's brought up with Pavia sometimes, but kind of where it's like that. But he's a solid passer too, especially when you talk about vertically down the field to complement the run game and getting those play action passes going deep down the field. And the bigger thing with all of it is that a ball control offense needs a quarterback who doesn't give the ball away. Pavia doesn't do that. 1.3% turnover-worthy play rate last season, top 5 in the country. So when you have a guy who's running the ball well, who's throwing it deep well to complement it, and then doesn't turn the football over, doesn't put it in danger, you can win ball games because that's a team all of a sudden that doesn't beat themselves. Now, He's undersized. He's not that accurate when it comes to underneath stuff and horizontal throws especially. And over his last 7 games, only completed just over 52% of his passes. So he's not a traditional pocket passer by any means, but in this offense to make the vertical throws that he needs to, and then obviously the driving force is his legs and the run game and the schemes that come off of it. Pavia is a dangerous dual threat player.
He absolutely is. Yeah, he's a fantastic quarterback in college football. Now, of course, his NFL evaluation won't be maybe the best because of his size and maybe lack of really tools and arm strength, but he's an awesome, awesome college player. And maybe he could make some money in the NFL as a long-term backup, or maybe even switch to tight end too, like the next player on this list did, Eli Stowers, going from quarterback to tight end. And now Eli Stowers is the best tight end in college football right now. No returning tight end in college football has been more valuable than Eli Stowers over the last 2 years, according to our wins above average metric. Elite athlete. He placed above the 99th percentile in our game athleticism score metric. That movement ability makes him incredibly dangerous after the catch. He was 3rd among power 4 tight ends last year with 13 forced missed tackles and was 4th in yards after the catch with 373. And like I said before, in my opinion, the best returning tight end in college football. And for the first time ever, he was the first ever Vanderbilt Commodore to be a number 1 player at their position entering the year in PFF's rankings.
Well deserved.
So, yeah, Eli Stowers, stud, man.
Well deserved. Electric player, really darn good athlete, and only just now, I know he's got to get a little bit bigger too for the NFL game, but only just figuring out now how to play the position, right, when it comes to blocking and even some route details. But an electric athlete who's had a wild road to getting to this point, but fantastic football player, no question.
So obviously, Dalton, a lot of question marks with Vanderbilt's defense next year, and they lost their 2 highest graded defenders, but they brought back their 3rd highest graded defender in Miles Capers you can highlight here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's good if you're going to try to build your defense, it's good to build it around veterans, and an edge defender like Miles Capers, only 235 pounds, but a solid pass rusher, good hand usage, good first step, and if there's a guy who's going to make an impact as a pass rusher on this team, it's going to be Capers. 75.2 pass rush grade last year. The signature play was the strip sack of Jalen Milroe late in the Alabama game that really started to turn that game on its head late. It was upside down the entire way, but that really started to put it away for him. So I think when you talk about, again, when you have a young defense that's trying to figure things out, you lean on your veterans, and Miles Capers is going to be that guy on the defensive line for Vanderbilt.
Absolutely. So, Dawn, after an incredible 7-6 season, and they brought back their 2 best players in Diego Pavia and Eli Stowers, their win total is still only 4.5 right now. 16th hardest schedule in college football. So Vegas is still saying, all right, you got to prove it again, Vandy. We're not going to just buy in on this 1 year after having, a bunch of horrendous years before that. Do you think they go over or under that win total? Will they make a bowl game next year? What do you think for the Vanderbilt Commodores?
I think I'm leaning over.
I'm going over too.
5.5 would have been harder, I think. But I see 1, 2, 3, 4 games here I think they should win. Find me one more. Pavia guts out one more. At 4.5, I'll go over. Yeah. I'll go 5 sounds closer to right to me, and they could still make a bowl game because Pavia and Stowers could will them there. I could be in on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
They ended the season kind of cold, but I like that they bounced back in the bowl game and beat Georgia Tech. That was a fun game to watch too. At 4.5, I'll go over. They're going to be a borderline bowl team again. They don't have a ton of depth, and I worry about them in the trenches. But when you have Pavia as your quarterback, I can't doubt you too much.
Yeah. And Eli Stowers, too. I mean, the combination of Pavia and Stowers, that might be enough for Vanderbilt to go bowling once again, but the defense just provide any sort of support for the offense right now because, like I said before, it's been pretty horrendous for almost a decade.
We're going to be spending all year making them one of our upset picks. What week is Vandy going to pull off the home run upset?
Well, hey,
nobody saw that Alabama game
Charleston
coming.
Southern, you got Virginia Tech, that'll be a close
Big game. That's a huge game for them.
Yeah, Georgia State, Utah State, you got Kentucky late in the year at home, too. Yeah, I can see 5 wins.
Virginia Tech's going to be pissed off too because Vandy beat them last year. They're going to be mad in that game in Blacksburg.
So yeah, I'll go over 4.5 for Vanderbilt. It's a tough schedule, but I think they'll get enough to go over. So